Marco Buckley, and you're watching Eclectic Arts Media.
I'm a lot more confident now, which feels great.
A lot of bands and women musicians are standing on Fanny's shoulders, and sometimes they don't even realize they're standing on Fanny's shoulders.
Very sad. Sad I can't have both.
안녕하세요, 롤링커츠입니다.
I had to read lines, and I was like, I don't do that.
Thank you, Mark. I got to shut up, Mark. He gave me that idea. Thank you, man.
By the way, you are such a good interviewer. All of your questions are solid questions.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I had to go through the driver's side window to get out of the truck.
Cześć, a ja to ja. Oglądacie właśnie Eclectic Arts Media.
I gave you the free pass based on your past. Now I know I never should have done that. I just thought that you would be wiser since you're older. I gave you the free pass based on your past. Now I know I shouldn't have done that. You were supposed to be wiser, 'cause you're older than me.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts Media, based here in Seattle, Washington. And thank you so much for joining me on this Wednesday, the 7th of June, 2023. And firstly, I'd like to thank Tobias from Vomitory. That was the last live stream I did, which was almost a month ago. It was great getting a chance to talk with him. He's an amazing drummer and songwriter, and their new album just came out, gosh, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks at this point on Metal Blade Records. And so it's great talking with him. And I'm very happy to be able to say thank you to Milo for making a donation recently. Full transparency, I have not received a donation for what I do here on Eclectic Arts Media in quite a few months, to be honest. There's a PayPal me link in every YouTube description. There's also a Venmo now down there. So if you feel so inclined to help me out, because this costs me money, so basically I'm losing money every month that I do these and keep this going, I would really appreciate it. And if it helps to spur you to maybe make a donation, a week from this Friday is also my birthday on June 16th. So if that helps give you a little more incentive to make a donation, that's great. And if not, I totally understand that too. What you can do though, if this is the first time joining me on my YouTube channel, if you can hit that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate that. I am just a little bit over 200 subscribers away from finally hitting that 2,000 subscriber mark. So it'd be great if I could hit that mark sometime this summer. We'll kind of see, it's just kind of the ebb and flow, but that doesn't cost you anything. And if you'd like to know what I have coming up as well, you can hit the notification bell, but at least if you hit the subscribe button, that really does help me out. And if you're on the Twitch side of things, if you follow me over there, I'll definitely follow you back. Twitch is where I started with Alice over 3 years ago, which is crazy to think about on this whole virtual ride that we've been doing. With my new video intro that some of you just saw, there's in-person intros now, and there's virtual things obviously happening. So I've got a mix of both. The one that I had with Allie Buckley was just from 2 days ago, which opened this video. And then the one at the end with Anya from Ayatoya, that was just in May. She was speaking Polish, if you weren't sure. And I had the South Korean band Rolling Quartz that were here in Seattle. So it's been really amazing to kind of have all this international stuff happen in person, but also have the virtual option as well. And coming up, since I'm talking about live streams and trying to get back into this world because I do enjoy it. This Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, Lily Bell is scheduled to join me, and she has a huge following in her world, which is very specific to some people, and some people can't stand it. I am always fascinated by folks that are in her world, so she is scheduled to join me, so I'm looking forward to talking with her on Friday. And if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, that's where I post everything first about what's coming up. It's Eclectic Arts Media, one word. And if you ever have any questions through any of the live streams and you don't know a way to, you don't want to leave a comment, you can always follow me over there and DM me. Some people have been doing that recently, and I'm happy to answer any kind of questions that you may have. And yeah, so I'm just happy to be back, and it's June and it's like 85 degrees here in Seattle, which is too warm for me. But let's kind of get going, because I always, as I mentioned many times on my live streams, I love it when guests come back. And this guest is no exception. It's been almost 2 years since she has joined me. So let me get to my introduction and we'll start our interview. My guest today is a talented artist and a friend. She was first interviewed back in February of 2021 with subsequent appearances in March, June, and July of 2021. She just released a brand new album called Metamorphosis. It is my great pleasure to welcome back to the Eclectic Arts Media virtual studio, Miss Sydney Sherwood.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good, Sydney. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me again. I can't believe it's been 2 years. That's so wild.
I know, as we were talking pre-show, it's just like, you know, on one hand, like where'd the time go? On the other hand, it's like so much stuff has happened in that 2 years
Yes.
period too. That's like, okay, but yeah, because you have a different background. I'm in a different home.
Yes, it's so crazy. Lots of things have changed.
Yeah, you have a new album out, so
Yes.
yeah, let's talk about the album and some of the songs. We showed a clip from your live session for Older Than Me, but so since I last saw you 2 years ago, were you taking a bit of a break before you started writing this next batch of songs? What was the timeline like since the summer of 2021?
Yes. So I feel like, as we were kind of talking pre-show as well, you know, I didn't want to take too much of a break in between these projects in terms of writing. And I feel like writing is very therapeutic for me, and it's just a very peaceful thing, and it really grounds me. So I never stopped writing, but I didn't really have the intention of creating another project soon after. And it just so happened I was going to do one or
Oh, look like you froze. Well, let's see if that's being frozen on both ends. I don't see myself being frozen, but Sydney definitely froze. At least for me. I don't know if the same thing happened on her end. Hello. This is how live things go sometimes, folks. If you're just joining me right now, or if you're watching this down the road, I do not edit my live streams unless there's something that I definitely need to take out. If there's a copyright issue or something else like that. Yeah, okay, she just came on. Okay, yeah, and Sydney's coming back. She just said that her computer just restarted out of nowhere, so no problem. So just hang on, folks. We'll get going. So we'll wait for her computer to reboot. Again, I have to love technology. And yeah, while I'm waiting for Sydney to rejoin us, I made a few changes to my background in terms of adding some press credentials. I'm on the wrong side. No, this side. There we go. We have Rolling Quartz, which is a wonderful rock band from South Korea, is up here now. The 50th anniversary of the P&B, it finishes up this Sunday, where my favorite dancer is actually retiring after 22 years as a professional dancer. It's going to be an incredibly emotional night for her. I know she's got family coming in from where she's originally from. And yeah, so we'll kind of see how long this takes Sydney to rejoin us. If you would ever like to make a comment or have a question for any of my live streams, you can always, again, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that should give you pretty much instant access. And if you're over on the Twitch side of things, you can follow me over there, and it kind of does the same thing. Please be aware that my guests do not see any of the comments. That's something I changed quite a few months ago. So I'm the one who sees them, and then I fold them in as the conversation goes. If I really want to let the guests see it, if it's something I can't quite explain, I will literally put it onto the screen so that my guests can see it. Yeah, okay, and I see it looks like she's trying to start up again, and here we go. And there.
Hello. I don't know what just happened. My computer just started out of nowhere. I literally didn't have anything scheduled, no update or anything, and I don't know what happened. That's the problem when we do like virtual things. It's very unpredictable. But I do remember what I was saying, so that's good. With Metamorphosis, you know, I really didn't plan on doing this whole project. It really just started as a few songs. And then we just sort of created this 7-song project, and it all really came together. And I was super thankful for this one because it was a lot of fun to do it with friends that are local and from close to my hometown. And I just sort of created this new community and these new friendships through this project as well. So it was a really special one, and I'm super thankful for it. And it was a great experience.
Okay, well, that's good, Sydney. I'm just trying to check something because I could hear you fine, but I couldn't. Yeah, your video's frozen. Oh, you just left. So hang in there, folks. We'll kind of get this connected again. Hopefully. But yeah, as I mentioned, I do have another live stream this Friday, and that's at 2 p.m. Pacific. And I am working on another one that I hope happens because it's related to the director that I had for the film about the all-female band Fanny from I interviewed Bobby back in May. And then Sydney's back again, so let's kind of see if we're going to make this work or not.
Let's see if this works now. I have a feeling I know what it is. So we're currently experiencing a lot of the smoke and the crazy weather conditions from the wildfires in Canada. So, and I'm in New Jersey, and my internet for the last few days has been a little weird. So I have a feeling that's probably what it is, but hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can't ever tell because sometimes like I when you were just last on, I could hear your audio, but I just couldn't see you're frozen. But right now you're fine. So if it happens again, I'll just know there's some kind of thing you're trying to come back on and that kind of thing. So if you could actually go back to what you're saying the second time before you disappeared, about that timeline.
Okay, yeah. So you had asked me about Metamorphosis and sort of how I started writing it. And I really didn't have a specific plan. It started with a few songs, and I knew I wanted to work with a friend of mine who's local here in New Jersey. And we really didn't have a plan. And I was like, you know, I want to do this and I want to do a few songs. And then I was like, you know, let's turn it into a full record. And that was kind of the same as my last record, Headspace. I only started with one single. And then we decided to turn it into a full project. And, you know, this was a really special one for me. It was a lot of fun. I got to do it with my friends locally in this area and then just create new friendships and a new community through that as well. So it was really special getting to work on everything from scratch. And I feel like what was different from this record than my last ones is that I was writing some of these songs like 2 days before I had to go into the studio. So nothing was really premeditated. Everything was very on the fly. And I kind of am like that, but I usually like to be prepared in some sense. And it was much different. And I loved getting to do that because sometimes I would even just write a song, not on guitar, completely a cappella, and write the lyrics and then be like, what can we do with this? And I did that with my producer, Connor Hansen. And we were like, starting from scratch with everything, which was a lot of fun. And it was a really collaborative process, which I loved. And like I said, just having that community around me for this record and getting to meet new people and form new friendships through it was probably my favorite part, but really didn't start with a plan. And it's very contrary to how I live my life because I like to plan most things. But when it comes to music, a lot of it is just sort of happening and I don't really control that. So it's interesting.
Okay, so as you were explaining with developing this like local community that's worked on this record and everything else, were these people that you had been like playing or been around prior to writing for this record? Like you're at other shows or doing other performances yourself and you saw someone who opened or also did something, or where did they come from?
So some of them I had known previously. My producer, Connor Hansen, that I worked on this record with, and I actually knew him. He was the sound engineer for my first project that I ever did. So I didn't work with him on like producing per se, but he was, you know, doing the sound and figuring everything out in the studio. And I first met him there. And then we sort of stayed friends and stayed in touch through that. I've done the session that you saw that I did for Older Than Me, I had done for Let Me Down. And that's when I worked with him again. And then he was like, oh, I'd love to record sometime. And I said, let's do it. So I knew of him. And then basically through him, I met all of the other people that I worked on the project with. People that he would be like, oh, this is my friend. He's a great drummer. Like, he wants to play on the record and stuff like that. So that was really fun. And yes, I didn't know everyone, but I did know Connor. So he sort of introduced me to everyone else throughout this whole process. And now I have this like new music community here in Jersey, which is cool.
Okay. Yeah. And, you know, many times, and this is a perfect example, it only takes one connection.
Yeah.
To open up all these other doors to other people. And I think sometimes, at least people on the media side, they kind of forget that. That you don't want to dismiss somebody because you think, well, it's just this person. It's like, you don't know who they know.
Exactly. Yeah. You never know.
Yeah. They might know a great photographer. They might know a great recording engineer. They might, you know, just depending on what you're looking for, a great designer, someone that knows social media really well. And it's like, oh, I don't need to work with them because they don't really have a resume that speaks to me. It's like, you should at least talk to them, especially if they're like, you know, cool and not, you know, down to earth and that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, if they're a jerk, then you can move on to the next person.
Yeah.
But have you ever, it sounds like since I've known you, you've been really fortunate that the musicians that have come into your life and the people that have worked on your music have been really positive influences. Have you ever had somebody like recommended to you? They're like, not that they're a bad musician, but they weren't quite connecting with what you wanted. So you wanted like maybe a different drummer or a different bass player or that kind of thing.
I would say I've been very blessed and very fortunate to say that everyone that has been recommended to me has been just amazing and has really impacted my life in a very positive way. I cannot think of one person where I'm like, yeah, no, I would never work with them again, or how do people like this person? I'm very fortunate and very blessed to say that the circle of people that I'm working with currently really are just amazing people. And I know in this industry, it's very hard. Some people are a little bit interesting and people have their quirks and you may not vibe with everybody, but I've been really thankful. The only thing that I can say that I have had a particularly bad experience with is vocal coaches. I have never really had a really great experience with that. I feel like in my experience, they have knocked my confidence more than they have boosted my confidence. And they have, I don't know. It's a very interesting thing because they're people that are supposed to help you hone your craft and hone your gift and make you sharper in your skill. And I've had the complete opposite experience with almost every vocal coach that I've ever had. So that's the only area that I can say people that have been not even recommended, but people that I have come across in that world, I have not had a great experience with.
Yeah, that you mentioned that whole story came back to me about how one of your vocal coaches was trying to make you basically sing up here, which is not your range.
Yes.
And mimic some other pop stars. Was that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, I need you to kind of take what I have here and make it better, not try to make me something else.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So no, that never works.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Even the short period of time when I was teaching guitar, like if somebody came in and wanted to learn, you know, classical guitar, I would pass them off to another teacher because I don't know how to play that style.
No, that's not your forte. Yes, of course.
I'm not going to try to. You know what? You really should be listening to metal. You should really listen to whatever I'm good at. It's like, no, you got to figure that. If they're a jazz guitarist, I might be able to get you going on a few things, but after that, I got to pass you off to somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take your money and not teach you anything.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Yeah. No, I completely get it. I feel like it can be a pride thing. And I think everyone has a sense of pride, whether it's healthy or not. And in my experience, for whatever reason, that area of my life has not been the greatest. But, I feel like I've even learned more on my own and knowing that I need to push myself and I need to challenge myself vocally by singing songs that may be a little bit too challenging. And even working with Connor for this last record, approaching singing in a different way, because my voice, I have a lower range and I feel like I'm definitely an alto for, a female singer. And I also have a very loud voice. So, I, for this record, really learned to pull back and to use my falsetto, which I had been very insecure about for so long, and sort of approach singing in a softer way at some parts and all of that. So that was interesting too, because all the things that I felt like I was taught weren't a good part of my voice or that needed to be better. I'm learning how to use for my own music instead of trying to please somebody else and be something else.
Yeah, and that's great, because I think everyone who's an artist is going to try to better themselves.
Yeah.
But they still know what ballpark to stay in.
Yes.
You're not going to try to switch sports and do something
Very
else.
true.
When you're a baseball player, it's like, maybe that's your thing. Stay with that. Doesn't mean you can't try other things, but your main deal is going to be over here.
Yes.
Just like if I wanted to, I don't know, start studying like art museums or something, I could do it, but it's not what I do or what I know.
Yeah. Luckily, I feel like I have a good sense of, what I'm good at and what I'm not. And then my mom as well. My mom has never been like, oh, she'll support me in anything, but if she knows like I'm not good at something, or even music, like if she didn't believe in what I was doing, she would not tell me to keep doing this. So my family is very honest, and I feel like that's also helped me as well, to know that I'm on the right path and that I'm doing the right thing too. So it's just funny, but yeah, she's very honest. So anytime I'm like, oh, I don't know if I should do this, she gives me her very raw and honest opinion, which I always appreciate.
Well, and you know what? At least especially when it's coming from family, where you stand, and they're usually coming from a good place. My mom, who's probably watching this right now, she'll tell me, especially if there's something technically wrong, like, Mark, I couldn't really hear you with that last interview that you did, or the background looked kind of funky, or what happened to your head, or something. And I need to hear that feedback, because I don't want to think things are fine and turns out they're not, and I can improve it, because I want to keep getting better. I don't want to just stagnate. Like, oh yeah, everything's perfect, and turns out, oh, there's a bunch of crap going on. It's like somebody walking around with something in their teeth and you don't tell them.
Yes,
like,
no, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, you have some lunch there.
Like, you may want to fix that. Yeah, no, it's important. It's important. And I think it's important to be self-aware, especially in, our industry, because you always want to try and evolve, and you always want to try and get better. And the second that you're not self-aware, that's when problems start to arise, I feel.
Yeah, very true. Very true. It'll help guide you when you're self-aware of where things should and should not be going. If you don't have that, then I don't know what you did. Then you have to hope people around you are being truthful and also honest.
Yes.
And as you mentioned earlier, sometimes in this particular industry, they're not. They're looking out for themselves. So it's like, oh yeah, you're doing great. Yeah, don't worry about that contract. I'll sign it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No, I know. I totally get it.
Not good. But having talked with you before more than once, I know that you have a lot of intention with your lyrics. You don't do anything that's just kind of, I don't know, just kind of fly by night kind of stuff. There's always something going on behind every song that you do and what you write lyrically. So what's going on with Metamorphosis in terms of the lyrics and the inspirations for what you wrote about?
Yes, lots of stuff. When I was writing the songs for this record, I had a lot of different themes come into play. And I feel like the overarching theme is a young girl in her 20s and sort of everything that she's experiencing, whether that be dating, stress, anxiety, because I know that as well, since we've talked, I've struggled with, mental health, and just trying to navigate life and figure out what's going on, and observing other people and trying to figure out who you are in relation to the world. Like, all this existential kind of stuff is sort of what I poured into this record. And I didn't want it to feel like a fully, Taylor Swift record about boys, but I feel like a large percentage of it is about my struggles trying to find someone, and in the dating world, and sort of the lack that I'm experiencing in that realm. And then also within, my personal life and mental health and just all of that. So this record was really all encompassing of everything that I feel like I've been going through in my most recent years. And I loved it because it felt super current to me. And I feel like a lot of people my age can relate. And even within the lyrics, I like to write in a way where people at any age can take away from my songs. And I feel like they're still applicable to people that may be older and people that may even be younger. So I really wanted this project to be all encompassing in that way, but I also wanted it to stay really true to my life and what was going on. And I mean, there's a lot of different themes on there and there's a lot of different stories on there. And, you know, the reason why I named it Metamorphosis is because I felt like each song represented a different stage in my life and a different moment in my life and experience. And it is all compiled together. And those experiences either made me better or made me feel worse or, you know, furthered me in life or I felt like it drew me back. So that's pretty much what the whole record is about. So lots of things. But, you know, I really wanted it to stay true to who I am, but then also be relatable to others as well.
Okay, yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that because for someone like myself who's not clearly not in my 20s, I can listen to it.
Not,
Still...
come on, Mark.
That was a long time ago. But that I can definitely get you know, meaning out of your lyrics, and sometimes it might even be from the other role. So like if you're singing about something about how maybe someone isn't well all that they seem to be or should be, then I can look at that too, and maybe that's me, you know, and I have the reverse effect on somebody. And it's as I was listening to the record, it's kind of like I felt there's a lot of this exploration of relationships or partnerships or any other professional or personal that maybe didn't work out. That's kind of the vibe I was getting from it. And you're kind of like questioning like what happened, like why do you treat me like this, or you know, just trying to explore what the heck happened here.
Yeah, no, literally that was it. It was like a giant question mark every song. I was like, what? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well then your mission accomplished then, because
that's good. That's good. I'm glad. No, I'm always glad. You know, I write these songs and a lot of them, my mom sometimes will be like, why don't you write happy songs? And I'm like, everyone loves my misfortunes. You know, like everyone loves a song that they can relate to that's about the struggles of life in whatever area, you know? So this record is a little bit different in the way that it was produced and in the way that we shaped it, because it doesn't sound like a super depressing record, but the lyrics and the content is like, yeah, a lot of this was a letdown, but here's why I wrote it. And here's like the way I wrote it that was therapeutic to me. And again, that I hope will be therapeutic to other people.
Yeah. Well, and I can't remember if I mentioned this during one of our other interviews, but maybe I did, but there's another singer-songwriter that told me this exact same thing about how she would like to write something that's more upbeat and more positive sounding, but then it's not that the music comes out, you know, dark and morose, because it doesn't, but lyrically it does, because that's what's in her head and that's what she's feeling.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's also why people connect with her music, because they're feeling the same way. It's like, oh, so you're writing about exactly what I just went through. And we're both kind of going like, you know, what the hell, what happened here?
Yeah, no, it's true.
So, you know, that you have to write what you know and what you feel. So, and yeah, to me, probably because I'm into a lot of dark music anyway, your music doesn't come across like, you know, like a bummer or something like that, because there's music out there that makes you feel like, oh my gosh, you know, the world's ending.
Like, oh, no, I feel worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Yours is much more introspective for me. And I'll take that any day of the week, because I love kind of re-exploring my own you know, things that I can relate to in your songs, or just whatever I might be going through right now. It's like, oh man, okay, I didn't realize Sydney was going through this at some point too.
Yeah.
So no, it's good. And I was going to ask you, when you're talking about even like the recording of this, and like you mentioned, you know, some of the other new artists that you're working, that, you know, helped you work with this this album. I think, let me make sure I got the song, Larger Than Life.
Yes.
That song sounds almost like it was like done almost live.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that specific song?
Yeah, so that's kind of the intention. We wanted it to feel really like grungy almost. And I would say it's probably the darkest on the record. And when I was working with Connor, he was like, I don't know, this is a little like darker. And I was like, no, I want to do it. And we created this song, and he also fell in love with it as well. And we were like, this feels like something different in the record. that was needed, and it really captured that period of my life. And something that's really interesting about this song, and I find that this happens to me a lot, and I'm not really sure why, but I write songs sometimes with a story behind it, but it doesn't have a personal meaning to me at the time. And then I may sit on the song, I may be like, I don't really know if I like that. And then a year will go by, months will go by, and I'll go through something that's about that exact song that I wrote. So it's funny because I don't know if I have this feeling of like something bad is gonna happen, or I feel maybe a relationship might end or a friendship might end. But that song, I originally titled it The Letter, and I wrote it as if I was writing a letter to somebody. And I was like, I want to write like in a new way. I want to make it a little bit more interesting for myself. And then I had gone through something a few months later that literally, if I could have sent this song to the person that it was about, it was word for word and moment by moment the exact experience that I had. And that's what I would have sent to the person, and that's what I would have said to the person. So it's very interesting how that happens. That one, I'd say, is probably one of my favorites, and it's the most special and the most profound to me because of how it worked out, because I had no intention of it being about somebody that it was. And yeah, so that song was an interesting one, and I loved recording that one. And I also just did a live session for that song as well, so that'll be out sometime soon, and I'm looking forward to that. But that's got to be one of my favorites, I would say.
Oh, cool. Well, that it definitely stood out to me, and that's why, yeah, I'm glad you shared all the kind of background. It's really interesting how you almost have like foreshadowing going on, that you'll write something that you have a personal experience about, and then, like you said, months or even years later, you'll be right in the middle of something that's exactly like that song. So I'm like, I didn't picture this being about you, but guess what? Now it is.
Yeah, no, it's so weird, and I don't know why it happens. It happened with One Trick Pony as well. It also happened with Older Than Me. So I was like, I guess I'm like I don't know, I'm like a little mini songwriting prophet over here. I don't know, but I'm thankful because I write these songs and they really do help me get through whatever it is that I'm going through. But I never intend for them to feel as big as they feel to me once I go through something that's exactly what I wrote the song about. So it's interesting for sure.
You know what you need to do is you need to write a song like right in the next couple of weeks about like opening for Billy Joel or winning the lottery.
Or like becoming a millionaire. There we go. I'm set.
Yeah, and then who knows, a couple months or a couple years down the road, and he's like, "Hey, this song is exactly about what I wanted to happen." And here it is.
No, it's crazy. I don't know how it works, but like I said, I'm thankful because whenever I go through something and I write these songs, they really help me along. So it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think almost every songwriter will talk about the therapeutic nature of songwriting, and be able to kind of express that to other people. And that's when we've talked about this. That brings up vulnerability as well. And it's kind of like, so how are people going to receive this? Because I just poured my heart out into a very personal situation in some cases. And then you find, oh no, you know what? There's a bunch of other people out there who went through the same thing you went through or are going through, and that's why it resonates.
Yeah.
That's probably why I have a hard time with some, not all, but certain types of pop music, because to me it's just so fluffy. I'm like, I don't get this.
It's very empty. I like to use the word empty. I feel like when you're following a formula to a T, and when you're keeping songs under 230, it's like, what can you really achieve? I feel like those songs are less about making people feel and sharing that vulnerability with your listeners than it is, like streams and, revenue and fame and all of that. And I feel like it's hard to be a musician and navigate that time and navigate this world where those are the songs that sell, and where someone will not take the extra minute to listen to a 3-minute and 30-second song. It's very challenging. And like you said, they're fluffy and they're not meaningless, because I don't want to say that a song is meaningless, but they're very empty, like I said, and they don't like stand for much. And again, if you're following the same formula all the time, you may have small variations, but I feel like it's not going to impact people on the scale that it could, if it's true from the heart, if it's, you know, has meaning to you. So it's a very interesting time to be writing songs and to be a listener of music as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's where sometimes you have an artist that maybe is getting a lot of pressure from management or whoever, the record label, that they're going to basically formulate this success for you. And then if that success comes, eventually that artist wants to express themselves, you know, whatever they're feeling. And they're kind of saying, oh, no, we're staying with this formula. And that's where the rub comes between artists wanting to break free of the record labels and their management and everything. It's like, I want to talk about how effed up my life is right now. And they're like, no, we can't have that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's how they are as people. That's what they're going through. And they want to share that with people. And that's really interesting. And I just was at a concert that was on Monday, 2 days ago. And wonderful singer-songwriter, never met her before. And she just has been opening for like sold out shows in big, huge places. Headline show was here in Seattle. And so her name's not really known out there yet. Extremely talented, went out there and gave everything she had, met everybody after the show. But there wasn't a whole lot of people there on a Monday night. And it becomes something where you're still planting seeds. You're still trying to meet those people that do want this kind of music and do want to come see you again, because she is coming back here in October, I found out. So I'm so glad that I went. I was trying to tell some other people. One friend made it to the show. All the other ones are like, who's that?
Especially on Monday too, it's hard.
Yeah, and I get it. It's like if somebody says to me, hey, on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night with my schedule, hey, do you want to go to cover a show? I'm like, that's the beginning of my week, so I don't know if I want to do that. But I applaud those folks that are out there, hustling and trying to get their music out there in a really crazy type of world that the musicians and artists are in right now.
Yeah.
Especially and even like for you and I talking, last time we talked, I hadn't been to an in-person event yet. I just thought about that. It wasn't until October of 2021 that I went back to in-person things.
Yeah.
So just seeing how that whole world is basically back to what it is now. But there's still all these little quirks from what happened during the pandemic that are affecting tours, that are affecting, is there a tour bus for us to use? How many clubs are around? We've had some of them have closed around here in Seattle. They didn't make it through.
Yeah.
So it's like you have less places to play. So it's like, oh, okay, so I can't play there anymore. What other options do I have? Well, now I've got two. That means everyone else is also trying to get gigs at those two places now, instead of those 3 or 4 or 5. So it gets tough out there at times.
It is tough.
And as we were talking about the songs on Metamorphosis, and you mentioned, like, we were talking about Larger Than Life, and I showed the clip for Older Than Me. Is Older Than Me something that is, I really like that song, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, is that lyrically pretty much like on point? Like there is somebody older than you that, should be wiser and that type of thing, like the lyrics say, who really wasn't, they're kind of showing themselves not to be?
Yeah, so with that song, this song was a little bit different in the way that I wrote it. I really felt like I was experiencing this sort of idea that I feel like a lot of girls are told, like, oh, like you have to go for someone older because they're going to be more mature, and girls are more mature than guys at a younger age. And I was like, oh, okay, like you think that idea and you're like, there's probably not exceptions, they're probably right. And that song is pretty much all about me realizing that it really doesn't matter how old a person is if they're totally emotionally unavailable and emotionally immature. And you could be 45 and have the same emotional availability as an 18-year-old, So I wrote that song about learning about that and how everything is not so black and white, and that there are different people who are in different stages of life that are more vulnerable than others, that are more open than others. And that song was a challenging one because it actually wasn't about somebody specific. It was about a specific situation where I was realizing it doesn't even matter what age you are, because there are still going to be people that are not going to act the way that you would hope that they would act at a certain age. So that's what that song was all about. And that was a fun one to write, and that seems to be everyone's favorite off of the record. I don't know if it was because it was the first single or if people really relate to it, but that seems to be the number one of everyone that has given me feedback about the record so far.
Okay, well, and at least from, I guess for me listening to it, I think there's definitely enough of a hook in that song.
Yeah.
That it kind of, well, the fact that you put it out as the first single kind of makes sense, because if I was listening to the 7 songs, they're like, yeah, that one kind of stands out. That if I'm trying to get people to know who don't know me, that's something I would want to represent me.
Yeah.
Covers a lot of bases, I think.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, I'm thinking about people that I know now. Some of them are, gosh, my one friend who I just saw, she's 22 years younger than me. And she's more together than most people I know who are my age.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Sometimes you have somebody like, shouldn't you be more mature if you're 50 or
yeah. So that's what I was realizing, like, wow, it really doesn't matter, and age is not a factor in emotional maturity and availability, and that song was about my revelation of that fact.
Yeah, no, and there's definitely people that are emotionally closed off because they've had some really horrible relationships. So they're just like, they put up that wall, and then, wow, yeah. Next thing they know, they're 60 years old, and it's still there. And it's like, at some point, do you want to let that come down, or you just want to stay like that? You have to figure this out. Which also explains why sometimes people keep bouncing against your wall and bouncing out of your life, and like we were talking about being self-aware, they don't even realize it.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
Wow. And for younger folks, I've worked with so many other people that are, again, professionally, that could have been 20, 25 years younger than me, and incredibly bright, hardworking, basically had all their shit together. And it was like, I don't care how old you are. I care, can you get the job done in those situations? Can I work with you?
True.
Yeah. Are you respectful? All these other kind of things. And because some people have a hang up with that. If they come in and like, well, you should be kind of looking up to me because I'm your senior. It's like, yeah, but what have you done? You're a ding dong.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you want people that are going to be decent human beings and, just be well-rounded. And sometimes, like I said, age kind of like pervades that, so it's very interesting how it works.
Yeah, no, that's true. I love the fact, again, that you have a lot of intention in your lyrics. I think they are things that people do relate to, and maybe they haven't really thought about it sometimes until they hear your music. Like, oh, that's true. I never really kind of thought about how people supposedly should be based on their age, and that's not necessarily the case. And then again, vice versa for younger people.
It's interesting too, because specifically with that song, I had a friend reach out to me from high school being like, this is exactly like what I'm going through. And she's like, it's so weird. I feel like you knew exactly what situation that I'm going through right now. It's like word for word. And I'm always like floored by that. And I'm always just so incredibly humbled by that. That's something I write can help somebody else and like completely describe their situation. And that friend, we keep in touch, but we're not super close. And, just hearing that, it's always like, wow, and I saw that with other songs on the record. And I mean, that's always something too, where I'm like, I can't even believe that that's how it happens, but that's how it happens. So I'm always very thankful for that.
Yeah, well, it's really nice to have something that becomes reassuring like that you can put out something, and then someone who's either in your circle or something even outside of your circle, messages you about how much they really related to what you wrote. You're like, I had no idea that it would be that far-reaching, or that meaningful to somebody. But that's also why you keep doing it. I think it's part of the reason.
Of course.
Yeah, because I don't think I ever get things that are like on a deep level discussion based on my interviews that I do, but I do get sometimes when people want to kind of message me about something that was talked about, and I'm wondering if I could maybe expound upon it, and I'm always happy to do that. But it's also kind of strange for me because I'm like, so who are you again? Because I don't know who this person is.
Yeah.
So and they could be like lurking right now, just watching stuff, and then they have a bunch of, Mark, I saw this one. Can you tell me more about? And I'm like, okay, but why do you want to know this, or what
Yeah.
what are you trying to get out of this?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm happy that they're watching and happy they have enough interest in it, and not being creepy or weird.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because those people are out there too.
Yes, really.
And I don't know if Morningstar is still joining us through YouTube, but thanks for joining us. And if you have a question, please put it in the chat. I'll be happy to fold it into the process of talking with Sydney right now. So Sydney, that's something that changed since I last talked with you. I don't have the chat available for people such as the guests to see. It's only for me now.
Okay.
It just makes it easier to have the flow of the conversation. And on the rare occasion, if a troll gets in there, guests will never see it. Only I see it.
That is, you're taking the brunt of it for us. We love that.
I am. So the guest is all happy and talking about stuff, and I'm like, what the hell is that?
That's good. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. So of the 7 songs, I know each one of them, have obviously a real special meaning to you. That's why you wrote them. And I believe that you've told me in the past that typically you focus in on those songs. Like you don't have, you might have bits of something that you'll come back to later, like you said earlier. But was there anything that was really close to making this record that you're like, I don't think number 8's ready?
Let's think. What song? I'm trying to think if there was one that I was really on the fence about. Because I did feel fairly confident in the songs that I was choosing for this record, and in mine and Connor's ability to create the record as well. So I don't think that there was one song where I was like, I think it's more so that feeling comes from me right after I write it. And that's why I like to give it a few days, because sometimes I'll be like, this is the greatest song ever. And then I look back and I'm like, this is the worst song ever. So it's hard. And sometimes what I do in that situation, I like to let someone else listen to it and let someone else's perspective be given to me about that song. And then they're like, no, I love it. Let's do it. And I'm like, okay, if you love it and you think that this could be a really great song, then let's do it, So I don't think that there was one song that I was particularly on the fence about in terms of it not being ready, but for my own personal writing, sometimes it takes me a little bit to fully feel confident in that song. But I don't remember that really happening with any of these. It's more so just trying to gain how everyone else, I think, will feel about the song, in terms of who I'm working with, and I can kind of gauge, and I like to choose based off of my feelings, but then also the people I'm working with feelings about that song, if that makes sense. So
yeah, no, they can be your sounding board.
Yeah, exactly.
And definitely if there are people that are knowledgeable, and clearly they are if they're working with you on making the music.
Yeah.
Maybe they like certain parts of, the verses are strong, but the chorus needs a little tweaking, or maybe that bridge doesn't quite work, so we need to kind of relook at this, but that's still a strong song, just to kind of tweak it a bit.
Yeah, and I'm always thankful, because the people that I work with are always very honest. So they're like, what if we change this word here? What if we tweak this a little bit? Because every song except for Counterfeit I wrote completely on my own, completely just in my room or in my car is where I wrote all of these songs. Counterfeit was the only one that I wrote with a friend of mine, Joe Macaviecki, that I do a lot of my co-writes with. And we did Let Me Down on my last record, and we did a few songs on my first EP. And, when you write just you, it's a little bit harder to judge, because you don't have another person being like, oh, well, we could try this, we could try that. So when I get into the studio, I'm always very thankful that the people that I work with, they're like honest, and they'll be like, no, I love that. I don't really love how that sounds here. Maybe we can fix it here. And I feel like that's what makes the process so much greater and so much more meaningful, is because you're not just going based off of what you want. You're also going based off of other people's expertise and their input. And it becomes a collaborative process at that point, which is what I love the most.
Yeah, that makes sense too, because if you're willing to accept someone's advice or suggestions to something, and if you listen back to it, it's like, you know what, that made it better.
Yeah.
And sometimes it could even be like, the melody line during the chorus, maybe you need to go up instead of go down here on that word.
Yeah.
It could be something that small, but it's like, wow, because of that input, it made it so much better than it already was.
Yeah.
So no, that makes perfect sense. I think back to even like my high school band that I played in, and we might be screwing around on some really basic kind of metal kind of song, but it's like, maybe we don't need a solo there because the guitarist always wants the solo. It's like,
Yeah.
I think this song just has a punch in the face kind of feel. We don't need the solo because that loses the impact. So you can solo on all the other songs.
That's great. Yeah, you're like, this one, we gotta leave this one. Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, is that you get to choose those moments where you want something or someone to shine, whether that be a musician or just an aspect of the song and production and that kind of thing. And I love getting to collaborate because, like I said, music can be a very challenging thing when it's all in your own head, and trying to relay that to other people can be difficult. But if you're working with people that understand you as an artist and sort of understand like what you're trying to convey and what you want to put out and the vision that you have for the project, that always helps.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point, because I think about different bands that eventually start doing self production of their records, and because they're so close to the music and they don't have an outside producer other than an engineer sitting there, that they get tunnel vision. They can't figure out how to make this thing actually sound better. But then when it gets released and the fans hear, they're like, "What the heck happened to this thing?"
Yeah.
And that's because they're just they're too attached to it.
Yeah.
Yep. You need somebody from the outside, hopefully somebody that you trust, that can listen to it. And like, we need to kind of do a little bit more with this to make it, which I think is in your head, because right now it's not sounding that way. You think it is, but it's not.
Yeah.
So that becomes a real collaborative process. And again, when it works well, then it's amazing. When it doesn't, then you have to find somebody different to work with.
Yeah, sure.
And that brings up a question that maybe, again, I may have brought up, 2 years ago. That's so weird to say. But I know, like you mentioned, you've done a lot of co-writes, and like when you do write a song by yourself, you like to bring it in and collaborate with the people that are working with you. Do you ever see something in the future, like an EP or another album release, where you've written every single song with no co-writes?
I think so. This record, it was all about one song, and I really liked the song that I did as a co-write, and I knew that I sort of wanted it to be the lead single. The lead track off of the record. And I feel like in my experience in the past and working with co-writers, especially if they could be a little bit more esteemed, sometimes it's less of a collaboration and it's more of what the other person thinks is going to work. And I've experienced that with a few different writers in my time of writing music. And I think this project was just so eye-opening to me, because it showed me that I can do all of the songs on my own, and I don't need another person to write good songs, and I really, and I made it a point to work at songwriting and take classes and really sharpen my skill when it came to songwriting and learning about it and taking inspiration from other people and all of that. And it showed me that I can do this. And I knew that I wanted to do a project that was mostly all from my own brain, because I felt like that was going to portray the vision that I had for the record most accurately, was it just being mostly me. And I'm lucky that the people that I do work with, when it comes to co-writes, we all have a very good connection, and they know me and I know them, and the suggestions are never oh no, that was a stupid idea. It's all a very collaborative process, really. And I know I keep using that, but that's really what this record was, and what my past projects have been as well. And I'm very fortunate to say that, again, as we talked about earlier, the people that I work with, really, I know that they have my best interest in mind, and they also want to move in the direction that I want to move in and help me portray, what I want to portray with my music. So yeah, I would say since this was mostly my own, I would definitely do another project that is all my own. And it's interesting. You know, sometimes you want to write by yourself, sometimes you don't. And sometimes you need that perspective, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you feel really good about a song and you're like, yeah, okay, that doesn't need anyone else to touch it. Other songs you need some help with. So it's really, it always changes for me. You know, I never like to put myself in a box in terms of what I'm working on. So I feel like sometimes I want to do more co-write, sometimes I just want to write in my room, you know? So it always changes. But yes, I would definitely do, long story short, I would do a full project of just my own as well.
Okay, yeah, no, and that makes sense. It kind of depending on, you might find yourself in some sort of stream of consciousness with the songs you're writing. It's like, wow, these are really good, and I don't think I need somebody else to kind of come and tinker with it.
Yeah.
And then you might have like 3 of those songs, and then the 4th one you're like, yeah, I'm kind of stuck on this part, or it's not quite where I want. I'm not getting it out of my head the way I want it to. Can you take a listen to this thing? And then we'll start looking at it. It's like, oh, I wonder if you try these chords instead of that chord, and that kind of thing. And then it starts, okay, it kind of kickstarts you over again. And that's yeah. When you find those people, I think we've mentioned this before, you hang on to them when you can.
Exactly, yes.
And clearly, like you said, you've been collaborating with people that have been working with you on other projects prior to this one. So it's like you found a few of these people already.
Yeah.
Okay, so anytime there's a new album that comes out for any music artist, what are you anything planned to promote this in terms of performances, or have you already done some, or what's coming up here since we're moving into summer and all that?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, there's a lot. I've done more promotional stuff for this record than I've done for any record, because that really does not come natural to me. And you know, the people that I'm working with, they're like, no, you have to like do videos, and, you know, you want to do photos and all of this, because that's the only way that people see it. In this age when everything is so media saturated, if you're not promoting, it falls behind. And you fall behind, and you're not as relevant as they say. So with this record, out of necessity, and also because I really wanted to put the time and the effort into it, I've been promoting it more than any other project that I promoted. Granted, I can't be too hard on myself, because when I started doing music, I was around 13. So I really didn't know what I was doing. And I'm just sort of figuring it out now in terms of how I want to market myself and how I want to promote and what I want to do. And it's been a journey with that, but I'm thankful that I'm, you know, figuring it out as I go along. Not that anyone really has it figured out in music, especially if you're an independent artist, because everything just changes all the time. But in terms of performances, I have been playing some of my newer songs out, and I'm very happy to say I'm getting back into performing, because as you know, I've loved performing, and I know that we've talked about sort of nervousness around performing before, and how, like, as soon as I start singing, like, that nervousness goes away. Last year, into a little bit of this year, when I was going through a really bad bout of anxiety and depression, my joy of performing was completely gone. And I felt so anxious, and I was like throwing up before every performance. I couldn't relax, and it was noticeable to my family. They're being like, you're not like how you usually are. And I'm like, I don't know how to control this. And I did take a break from performing for a little bit. And it was because I needed it, but also because I was afraid to get back out there. So I had a showcase about a month ago, and that was my first performance really back as myself for my own stuff. I've been very continuous with my cover gigs and the work that I do for that, but this was different. And you know, mental health is a funny thing, and your brain is a funny thing, because when I was singing covers and when I was doing that for my job, I didn't have any nervousness. But when I was singing my own stuff, I was like, I can't do this, because everyone's eyes are on me, and like, no one's going to know the song. So if, you know, I have to run off stage, or if I pass out on stage, like, all of this stuff is running through my brain. So, you know, it was a very challenging time, but I'm very grateful and happy to say I'm getting fully back into it. I had a major breakthrough moment. I played at the Hard Rock in New York City. And that was like my show back, where I was like, all right, I got this. And now I can start to perform more. So looking forward to doing that in the summer. And now that, you know, COVID is at bay, I have more opportunities to play in other places, and I've just been sort of focusing on that and what I want to do with that moving forward. But yeah, the mental health thing really stopped me from performing for a little bit. So I'm just really starting to get back into that now. But in terms of promotion, you know, I'm still working on videos and visuals and graphics and all of that. So it's been a process, and it's been a journey, really. But yeah, I'm happy to say I'm fully back into it now. So
Well, I'm glad to hear you're fully back into it, but I completely understand why you weren't.
Yeah.
We've obviously had conversations openly on my live streams about mental health, and I'm from both sides, my own as well. So, and like you said, it is such a weird thing that when you're doing cover songs that you can get out there and kind of do it, and then what you're doing your own songs, it becomes this whole other thing in your head.
Yeah.
And I think only musicians and / maybe people that have struggled with mental health would understand that, because really when you're doing your own material, it's your material. It's thoughts that are coming straight from your heart that you're putting out there. Like you said, you know, people most likely may not know the stuff depending on what kind of gig you're doing.
Yeah.
And then so it starts to build up in your head about all kinds of what ifs kind of scenarios.
Exactly. Yes.
Yep. Versus the cover tune, just like, well, I'm here to play some cover tunes, hopefully be some entertainment for people,
Yeah.
stuff they might know and have a good time, be background or whatever it is, get some money, and then you'll get out of here.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it was. And my mom was like, I don't understand, you know, how you're fine with the cover gigs, but your own stuff. She's like, because my cover gigs are 3 hours, and I was struggling to get through a 30-minute set, you know? So it's like, it doesn't even equate. It doesn't even, it literally makes no sense. But that's like the nature of mental health, you know? A lot of stuff just, it's challenging. And it was definitely a rough time. It was probably one of the worst. And, you know, I'm happy because I was still doing music through that. I never wanted to stop, because I know if I stopped music completely, if I stopped writing completely, if I stopped doing the cover gigs, it would have taken me a much longer time to get back. But I'm feeling back to where I was, if not better. So I'm very happy, because it was a rough time. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry you went through such a rough time. And we had kind of messaged every now and then over the last 2 years since we last did one of these things.
Yeah.
So I kind of got that feeling from not only you, but some other people too that were kind of going up and down through the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I was in that boat as well. I just haven't really been very open about talking about it last October of 2022, and I had a really rough time, which I'm actually still kind of dealing with now, and we're in June.
Yeah.
But for something that not for me directly, but something that affected me directly because of someone who passed. And so, but some people, they don't know what's going on. So they're like,
Yeah.
How come you're not, like, you know, covering or doing as many live streams? How come you're not out there doing as much stuff? It's like, you know, I'm just trying to get by. I'm just trying to survive right now.
I'm trying to make it like through the day, you know. It's tough. Mental health is challenging, and I think more so now than ever, people are starting to understand what it feels like, and understand that it is hard to literally operate at a full capacity all the time, especially since COVID. And I'm thankful for it in that sense, because it's shown other people that people who struggle with mental health and who battle it, it's not that they're like crazy or they're being irrational. This is what happens, you know. And you have to take it day by day, and you have to take it moment by moment, and you have to learn how to be present and not worry about the future so much, but like keep yourself sane. It's all encompassing. So I feel like a lot of people have learned that people who feel like that, they're accepting that more, which I'm, you know, happy about. But it's tough, and I feel like everyone goes through it at points. You know, we were talking before just about how, you know, it's natural to have those ebbs and flows, and to have those high points and those low points, because no one's life can be at 100 all the time, you know. And I've been learning that, you know, the lower points, they make you appreciate the higher points even more. And I feel like when you have that perspective, you can kind of look from the outside, even though you're literally in your own head, and be like, okay, this is like this right now, but it will get better, because it has gotten better in the past. So yeah, you know, mental health is something, and it's something that you and I have talked about. You know, I use a lot in my writing and in my just journaling as well, and writing lyrics and all of that, because I think it's important. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it. And I feel like it shouldn't be as taboo as it is, but it is. And I think music is just one way that we can sort of convey what other people are feeling.
Yeah, very well said. And I agree. I think the pandemic forced some people to kind of face those things that they didn't maybe have a name for what they're kind of dealing with, or sometimes because they did slow down so much, then they really started having some issues. So like, oh crap, because they've been purposely not dealing with them by like working really fast or working really hard and doing all these extra things. Like, you know what? Now you don't have any of that stuff to do, so now you have to deal with yourself. And I kind of realized, oh, I have some baggage I gotta deal with right now.
Yeah.
I know I do. So, but I'm glad that I'm glad you're kind of you're coming around the bend. I've been coming around the bend for a while, so things are all kind of on the up and up for now, and eventually it'll take another dip. It just happens, like as you just mentioned. That's just, you can't stay up here all the time. Doesn't matter who you are.
That's true.
Just not, you're not going to win every single baseball game. You're going to win, the NBA Finals tonight. Who knows? I mean, it doesn't work that way.
No, definitely doesn't.
Yeah. So, see, I'm kind of curious about these cover gigs that you're talking about. Are you getting to pick all the tunes, or what kind of gigs are you doing then, and what kind of songs are in these covers tune sets?
Oh, it's everything. And I always have like, there's always one thing I say about these cover gigs, and it is, there is one song that if I did not win somebody over, it completely wins them over every time, and it's "You're Still the One" by Shania Twain. Every time I sing that song, people are like, oh my gosh, like, it's so funny. Like, I could sing the 65 other songs in my book, but that one is what like gets people going. So with these cover gigs, I started doing them a year ago, and I was very nervous. I was like, oh, 3 hours, like by myself. I didn't want to do it by myself. I was trying to split it with other people. And then I just basically went through a bunch of different songs and some of my favorites, and then also like classic backyard barbecue favorites that you hear, like "Take It on the Run" and "You Give Love a Bad Name" by Bon Jovi, like just songs that most people would know. And I put them on my book, and I'm still old school. I have it in a binder. I don't like using an iPad because I like to have everything in front of me and not have technology be unreliable, because there's no way I'm remembering close to 80 songs now that are in my book in my head. So it's a lot of fun. I have a lot of different songs. I have basically from Billy Joel to Green Day to Simon and Garfunkel to pop stuff like Lady Gaga and NSYNC, and just Chris Stapleton, some country stuff. Morgan Wallen is in there. Lots of different things, and it's a lot of fun. And I love getting to do the cover gigs. It's a blast. So I actually have one this Sunday, weather permitting, because the smoke is stopping everybody from being able to go outside. So, and this gig is outside, like on a rooftop. So hopefully I will be able to play that. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I love just getting to sing covers and do my own renditions of songs. I've had people tell me like, I hate that song, but the way you did it was great. I'm like, oh, awesome, So it's a lot of fun, and I'm having a great time doing them, and it's also awesome that I get to do that for work and that it's sufficient enough for me to survive off of. So, some people don't love it, and I honestly was a hater. I was like, who wants to do cover gigs? Like, why? And now I do it and I love it. So yeah, that's all about that area of my life. And like I said, I so enjoy doing them.
That's cool. So you mentioned the Shania Twain song. Have you thought about recording a version of that just for shits and giggles?
I don't know. It's funny because I'm not really, I wouldn't say like it's not that I dislike her or anything, but I'm not a big fan. And I know that song is like super popular, and a lot of people, like anywhere, if that song comes on, everyone's singing to it. But, I don't know what it is about that song and why people love it so much, but I mean, maybe in the future, I don't know. I don't know why it gets people, but it does. So I always sing that one, and people are like, oh, wow. And I'm like, oh my gosh, out of all the songs, this is the one. It's very funny.
Well, I'm thinking in terms of like, cause I've been, I don't know, the last month or so, really like studying my analytics online, which drives you crazy after a while.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking if that's a song that you're finding when you're doing your cover gigs, people really gravitate towards when you do that Shania Twain cover. Even if you just like had someone just record a live version of you performing it on this rooftop on Sunday, and throwing it up on your YouTube channel and see if that starts bringing more people to you.
Yeah, it might do well. It's interesting because, I mean, that's pretty much, and I know you're the same way. Like, it sounds bad, but we live for figuring out the analytics. We live for figuring out what people want, and not in the sense that we want to sell ourselves, but we want to do what we know will help us along, because if you are doing it for your work and you're doing it for your living, and like you do this because you love it and this is like your full-time thing, you obviously you don't want to do stuff that people are going to be like, what the heck, so it's challenging, but that is a good idea. I really didn't think of that because, if that's what people are gravitating towards, then why not,
Yeah, I would, even if you record it and you just have that footage to sit on, you don't upload it or anything, at least you have it.
Yeah.
And you can make that decision down the road or like when the time's right or whatever. Because I'm thinking about like some of the stuff. And I'll be completely honest, it gets a little disheartening that I could be here doing an interview like with you that I did prep work for and I made the background, I made the intros and all that kind of stuff. And it gets X amount of views. And then I could go to a concert, put my phone up for 3 minutes, record some song that a band's doing, and it gets 1,000 views.
Yeah,
and
no,
I'm kind of like,
I mean,
like,
I have an example of that, I always say I'm going to start TikTok and then I start and then I'm like, but I tried and I would get, I don't know, let's say 600 to 800 on one of my covers. I posted a stupid video of me in Staples and in all the Staples by me. I don't know about anywhere else, but they had giant Shaquille O'Neal cardboard cutouts just everywhere in the store. And I went and I like took a video of me like doing thumbs up with the Shaq cutout because it's like his exact height. And I was like, this is crazy. Like in 30 minutes, 900 views. I was like, what? So it makes no sense, and it's very disheartening because you're like, you put your heart and soul into something that gets 200 views or 50 views or 5. And then I always say, TikTok is one of those things that it makes me so discouraged, but you have to do it. I could like throw an ice cube on the floor and that might get 50,000 views, It's just certain things. And it's this very consumer, like media, like, I don't even know what the right word is, but everyone is just all in. And it might not even like it's very, I don't even know how to describe it, but it can be very mindless sometimes where you're like, there was no thought or intention put behind that video, but they have 1 million views. And then you have someone that's really putting thought and intention and then they have none. So I have stopped trying to figure it out because it drives me crazy when I sit there and think about it. But I do try and do things that I think may help me, because if you sit there and you are really trying to figure it out, we live for that. We live for creating content and hopefully having it be marketable and that other people will like it. But when I focus on it too much, then I'm like, I'm not in a good spot. So I try to just figure out what I'm doing as I go now because it's too much sometimes,
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying because I remember, so I took my guitar over here that I had not played in months. I recorded myself, just whatever stream of conscious kind of crap came out of me, just riffing around on some kind of metal thing. I put it up there and I got like 600 views, which to me was a lot because I'm like, this is just me being stupid. I just recorded just to do it and be funny, really. And then I could do an interview 2 days later that I spent a heck of a lot of time on trying to secure it, trying to get it all together with the publicist. And then, 6 people watch it. And it's like, that's still not the reason why I do things. That will never change. But it's so crazy that you're right, that some things will just kind of go nuts in terms of viewership when there's like no intention behind it whatsoever. And then something else that was really, really like someone spent a lot of time with, no one cares.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And that's that's the world that we live in, unfortunately. And as I was, sort of mentioning before, the whole song thing and the length of the songs, that's what's been really killing me recently, because as a music lover and listener, when an artist releases an album, I'm listening to that. I'll literally carve time to listen to the whole thing. Now it's like these artists are making songs that are under 2 minutes to market them on social media platforms. And I'm like, is that really what we should be doing? Or because at this point, I mean, it's always been a business and we know that, and it's always been a money-making business, but it's really crazy to me that this is the way that it's going, and attention spans are lower. And if you don't grab attention in the first 10 seconds, it's like, all right, I'm turning that off. And we don't give music a chance, I feel like, as much as we did before. Because there has been stuff that I've listened to where I'm like, I don't really like that. And then I give it some time and I'm like, actually, that's a great song, or that's a great artist. So it's a very weird world that we're living in right now. And it's a very challenging world to live in, creating entertainment and content and all of the stuff that we do, when it feels like not a lot of it is getting returned, So it's very challenging. But like I said, I try not to get too discouraged, because as you've said, and as I've said, when you get those people that tell you that what you're doing makes them feel good or that they relate, that makes it all worth it. And I feel like it's important that, we never forget that, because there have been times where I'm like, why am I doing this when no one's going to see it? But then you hear from somebody and you're like, wow, okay, there's one random person that said that what I did meant so much to them. And if one person feels like that, chances are there are other people that feel like that too, So it's hard to navigate, but I try and stay encouraged that there are people that like what I'm doing, and that there are people that like what you do as well, and it's hard to remember that sometimes, but we got to do it as creators in this crazy entertainment world,
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this, really, I've told other people this, that if you're going to start any kind of thing, if you're a musician, if you're a painter, if you're a podcaster, whatever, that you really have to believe in what you're doing. Because
yeah, for sure.
If you're doing this because you want more, likes, if you want more clicks, if you want more whatever, you're chasing something that you'll never understand.
Yeah.
So if you don't actually believe, in the core of what you're doing, then don't do it. Don't even bother starting any of this stuff. Just watch other people's stuff, listen to other people's stuff. Because once you start doing it, you got to follow that path that you're on, wherever, it might take a left turn, a right turn, it might go upside down on you, but at least that's something that you believe in.
Yeah.
And obviously there's going to be a lot of detractors out there for social media. You're going to see the person next to you that's getting thousands of views on something. You're like, wow, they're getting views on this, and I'm doing this over here. It's like, hey, how much do you believe in what you're doing? And is that going to keep pushing you forward? And if you need to take a break, that's fine, take a break. But understand that from the beginning, when you're getting into this world, how far do you want to push? Because I think some people think it's kind of easy, because it is so easy to create an account, to do a YouTube channel, to do whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but are you going to be here a year later? Are you going to be here 2 years later? What's your intention behind this?
Yeah, the consistency is key. Really, it is.
It is. Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't disappear for too long, because then you go way back here and everyone else is going right past you.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. As much as I don't want to post something on any given week, it's like, if I don't post something, then the algorithm starts putting me down here, and then other people, that they don't see it and they won't know, like I'm on YouTube right now, even though we've gotten more viewers in the last hour. It's just strange how that whole thing works. And yeah, you can't, at least for me, it sounds like you're the same way. I can't get wrapped up in that too much. I just have to know, this is what I want to do. I scheduled this and I can't wait to be there. I can't wait to write this review of this movie or whatever I'm doing. And if people come, they come. And that's the way it's got to be. And yeah, it's easy to get discouraged, but it's like, well, you know what? There's going to be somebody. I mean, I've gotten more subscribers in the last 28 days than I have in the last 2 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so then I start figuring out, well, why?
Yeah.
Why? And I know why, but it's like something I can't control, because it's not something I produce. It's me doing this, filming clips at certain concerts. That's what it was. And I'm like, okay, if that brings you to my channel, because I've also noticed that some of my live streams that are sitting there, the numbers are going up, because now those people are starting to look at that stuff.
Yeah.
What else does this guy do on his channel? He's got other bands on there. Oh, what's this other stuff over here? And they start clicking through it. So that's what I want. lure them in with the
Yeah,
clip
no,
from some
exactly.
band.
Gotta grab their attention somehow, right?
Yeah, and that's where I think my mentality was going back to that Shania Twain cover of yourself, doing that. That might lead you them to all of your original material.
Smart, yeah.
So I don't know, but again, I'm just one of those people. Like when I used to perform, I always wanted my mom or anybody else to kind of doing a new song. Can you film it for me so that at least I have it, and I'll decide if I want to put it out or do something with it instead of like not having any version of it. Then I'm just like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it sounded okay.
Yeah, you'll never know.
Yeah, and then even from that standpoint, it was always good feedback for me to be able to listen and watch how we sounded as a duo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it sounded pretty good when we were playing it, but I might have been a little bit buzzed from a few beers or something. Then I listened to it, like, oh gosh, that was bad.
Yeah.
Luckily, the audience maybe had a few beers too, so they didn't care.
Yeah, no, and even like with the cover stuff, I'm like, you can't mess it up too bad, but you can. I mean, your originals you can mess up, but a lot of people won't notice. But covers, they're also more forgiving too, because someone is singing along, then you could sound not good, and they'd be like, "Oh, that was awesome," So it's interesting. It's very interesting. All these aspects, they can really mar creativity, and they can really destroy creativity. And I think it's important, like you said, to understand why you're doing it and really get to the bottom of like why you want to do it and why it means something to you. Because this whole culture now and even the industry itself, it's not meant for the weak in terms of how bad you want something and how much effort you want to put into it. Because if it's not consistent and if it's not like 150%, it usually does not work in your favor, So it's like I keep saying, it's very interesting. That's like one of the only words I have for it, because it changes all the time. There's always different trends, but you really just have to do what you love and put 150% effort into it.
Yeah, you stay the course.
Yeah.
Whatever that course happens to be for you, you just kind of have to believe in yourself and know that I'm going to keep pushing forward until I can't push anymore and decide, you know what, I've had enough of this. Or maybe it's something happens, you have a breakthrough and things really start to roll for you. And you're like, okay, this is why I did all that, 5 years ago leading up to this. It's kind of crazy. That's one aspect I will say about like something like Facebook that has memories that pop up, that I can see something from 8 years ago. I'm like, dang, is that when I did that? Because Eclectic Arts started in 2011.
Wow,
And I'll kind of forget about. Matter of fact, today I saw a couple photos that I took in 2017. I'm like, God, those are terrible. but I'm like, I remember that concert. I remember being there. It's on a Friday, and I kind of think, well, it's nice to know that I've hopefully improved.
Yeah, you're evolving. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing with interviews. When an old clip will show up, and I'm like, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
And that's enough to kind of float my boat. If I can see that I've had improvement over the years in whatever aspect of what I'm doing, then I know I'm getting somewhere.
Exactly. Yes, of course.
Yeah, I don't want to be in like 2025, look at a live stream I'm doing and go, that looks like the one I did in 2023. I didn't do anything different. There's nothing different even about a background or my equipment or anything, just how I do my introductions. And at the same time, when you find things that work, then you keep doing them. So I still have my notepad. I have my introductions that I write, because that will never change. And I still take the time to do that. But outside of well, what else could I do, in addition to these things? And that's kind of how my mind spins around. And then it's like, well, I can only let it spin for so long, and I just have to get out there and do it. I think that's the other piece too. And you're doing that too by, writing and recording music, performing music. I don't know how many times I've told people, it's like, if you want to do like a podcast or like this kind of thing, live streams, you just got to start doing them.
Yeah, that's it.
You can't sit there in your room or your office for too long thinking about like, well, I think I'll ask these questions about this guest or whatever. It's like,
and wish that you could do it. You gotta take those steps.
Yeah, just try it out, and you'll learn from it and figure out, man, that was pretty rough on certain parts, or other parts were kind of good, or it looked like I started getting views or comments when we went this direction. And then start folding that in, and then so the second one, the third one, the fourth one, you do start making it a little bit better, more improved, and kind of see where it goes. But yeah, if you sit there and think about it too long, and then you kind of talk yourself out of it, you just won't ever do it.
Very true.
Yeah. Well, to kind of wrap this up, you've kind of mentioned, well, we talked about the album, obviously, and talked about shows. We talked about that, kind of the ebbs and flows of everything. And, you're working into summer. Something that's kind of a little bit maybe outside of the scope of what we've been talking about is that I think the last time I talked with you, I know you've been like studying in school, but did you make a shift like of what you want to be pursuing?
I did. Yes.
Okay.
I did. Yeah. So, I'm very confident in what I'm doing now, but I was originally a business major and I switched to exercise science. So my long-term goal is physical therapy. If I could do one thing, it would be music. But for my own sanity and for my own control issues, I like to have a plan in place for, if things do not work out the way that I hope that they would. And I'm really enjoying what I'm doing now, and I'm still in school. And I think that's another thing too that I can't always be so hard on myself about, because I am doing like two things at once or three things. I'm working, I'm going to school, and I'm doing music. And, it's a lot easier for, artists that have bigger budgets. I'm independent and self-funded. So it's like, as we were talking before, I have to wait until I have the funds to make another project. And people will be like, when is new stuff coming out? And I'm like, when I make more money, So it's a very hard thing to try and navigate, like those three things at once. And I did make a giant shift and I did sort of backtrack and fall behind a little bit in terms of my progress and how long things are going to take me. And I've really had to just sit back and be like, however long it takes, it takes. And if music works out, music works out. So I'm learning to adapt more of this sort of free attitude about things, as opposed to trying to control everything, and sort of what's meant for me is going to happen and what's not is not. And the whole career shift in terms of schooling, that was another one of those. I never would have saw that was coming, but it did. And now I'm just sort of going with it and figuring out as I go. And I've been saying that this interview too, about how my whole record was about figuring things out, and just sort of as things are actively happening in my life. And I feel like it's very relevant to what I'm going through in terms of, shifting careers and shifting work and shifting an era in music. Cause my last project was more alternative rock, and now this is more indie pop. So it's fun, and I'm enjoying the different changes. I feel like it's important to really take the experiences of your life and make something out of it in terms of, how you deal with it and how you process it and sort of how you go through it. And it's been interesting. But I'm having a good time. I really can't complain. Everything is great. And those three areas of my life are really where I want them to be. So I'm happy about that.
Well, that's good. And you definitely do need to remind yourself to give yourself some grace, because when you're in your early 20s and going through college and working and doing music and having a social life and your family and everything else, it's a lot. I think anyone out there who's been, they have to kind of remind themselves, you come across much older than you are. So sometimes they forget that maybe you're 21, 22 or somewhere in there. Or 20.
Yeah. Yep. 21.
Yeah. That if they think back to when they're that age, you're like, oh, that's when I was in college, or that's when I was working a full-time job somewhere that I hated, or you really haven't formed yourself yet.
No.
you're in the midst of this thing where that's probably why the songs are the way they are. You're still trying to figure all this stuff out. And even when you turn 25 and you're maybe done with school, and you still haven't figured out, because then you're going into another realm depending on what is important to you at that point.
Exactly.
Part of that journey of life, and when you turn 30 and 40, and people like someone like me, over your 50, and you're kind of like, what's important to you now? Because now that you're running out of time in a certain sense.
Everything changes, Yeah, there's different seasons.
It does, because if I think back to when I was 21, that's when I was in college and trying to get my degree, and then outside of that I wasn't doing anything. I've told people in person here that I'm busier now than I've ever been in my entire life, and that's at 52. So, and I never would have predicted that. I mean, but that's the way the paths work, and like we were talking pre-show with my day job, that's something from the past help influence my current situation now. And same thing with the media outlet. Who knows where this thing could eventually take me from someone I just met 2 days ago. Maybe I'll see them 5 years down the road and they're like blown up and doing whatever else. And like, oh yeah, or that guy.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
So, well, Sydney, it was amazing to get a chance to talk to you about Metamorphosis and catching up with you after 2 years.
I know, it's been so good. I know we've been like keeping in touch throughout this time, but it was so great to do this again with you. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, and I wish you every success with the album. And I'll be watching and listening as I know you mentioned other videos can be coming out, and kind of seeing what you're up to. And yeah, for some reason, if down the road I see some certain cover song show up somewhere that you're doing at one of your gigs, and it's like, oh, okay, that's what she was talking about. Or maybe it's a different song you decide to do, just to kind of say, I really like this one. I'm gonna put this one out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
But if you ever feel like you'd like to come back on, you know where I'm at.
Thank you so much. I always appreciate it, and I always appreciate your dedication to us artists in whatever form and how you're really here for us. So I always appreciate it. You're awesome, Mark. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I definitely consider you a friend at this point. And it's great catching up with you, and just have a really great night over there.
Thank you. Yes, I will.
And hopefully that smoke gets out of there.
Oh man, it's been bad. I mean, even the house smells like it too, because it's like, it's crazy. So I'm hoping that by the weekend it goes away. So yes, I appreciate that.
We've had that issue here a few summers where it was either coming from Canada or coming from California.
Yes.
And it's so bad. I will take heat over that, because heat I can try to deal with. You can't even open your windows when the smoke's out like that.
Yeah.
Gets into your car. Yeah, it's like, oh, I don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah.
And I hope Aaron Judge gets back on the field pretty soon for you.
Oh, I know. I hope so too. I'm very sad about that. I saw the news yesterday. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And they're gonna try to put some sort of padding over that concrete where he stubbed his toe or whatever in Dodger Stadium. But
I know, I saw that. Everyone was in an uproar. They're like, it's such an old stadium. They need to fix that. Yeah, so 10-day IL for him, and also game postponed tonight because of the weather. So it's crazy.
Yeah. All right.
Well, have a great night, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sydney. Take care.
Bye.